We're going to be talking more about the action at the Union Station in New Haven, the railroad station. I'll be speaking to Nora Wyrtzen and Nounja, who are both taking part in it, and we'll get into more details, and we'll take it from there. Nora, good to talk to you. I understand that you are a student at Yale. You are specializing in environmental studies, and you're doing organizing work in New Haven. Maybe tell us what you did that day at the end of March in the train station, why you went there, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the end on March 28th, at around 5:30 p.m., about 100 or so of us got into place at the top and bottom of the escalators in Union Station. And effectively shut down the station, preventing people from going up and down those stairs and escalators, preventing people from reaching their trains. To some extent, we did leave some entrances open to really protect everyone and prioritize people's safety. We used lock boxes to really effectively stay in place and stay there for a long time. We occupied the station for I think about 6 hours.
Can I
Um,
interrupt you for a second? What's a lockbox?
a lockbox is a contraption that allows you to stay in place for kind of a longer amount of time. It mobilizes your arms or whatever part of your body that you're kind of attaching to the lockbox, and makes it so that police can't move you or remove you from that place easily. Yeah.
I see. All right, I apologize, but I want to clarify that point. So you were there 6 hours.
Yes, around that time. Yeah. And during that time, we had chanting, we had singing. There was a rally happening the same day that was ultimately kind of spontaneously diverted to join us at Union Station. And really, the purpose of us being there was to demand that DeLauro divest from funding genocide and from sending weapons to Israel. Yeah.
Let me now talk to Nounja. She's a child psychologist. She's indigenous from North Africa and has done organizing around immigration and labor issues. So, Nounja, why did you take part and what did you do that day?
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. So I'm a child psychiatrist, so trained as a physician, working in children's mental health here in the Hartford area. I've been organizing around Palestine ultimately since college days, actually, about 15 years ago, but wasn't really very active until in recent years, until October. And
Mm.
when the genocide really began in full scale at this point. So I showed up and participated in the action because I believe one of the best things we can do for children's mental health is to try to block the weapons that are killing them and killing their parents, and disabling so many children across Palestine. So that we were calling on Representative Rosa DeLauro to divest from the weapons industry that is going to kill Palestinians. A lot of the industry in Connecticut is based in what is called a defense, which really means offense and contributing to the genocide. So my role there was to participate in the blocking of entrances, to send a message that there will be no business as usual during a genocide. And I was ultimately arrested in that process.
Now, how many people were arrested? Do you know?
Around 9 to 13.
9 to 13. And what did they charge you with?
Breach of peace.
Breach of peace. And have they
Mhm. Which, no justice, no peace. I think it's appropriate.
uh, and uh, where does that stand? Do you have to appear on a certain date, or what's next?
We have appeared in court. Our charges were dropped to creating a public disturbance, and that is now set.
You mean it's over with, or there's going to be a trial?
Yes, it is over.
Ah, I see. And do you know if that's the same for everyone who was arrested, those 13?
Mostly, but I can't say for sure.
Okay, okay. Well, let's talk about DeLauro, because she was the person you were trying to influence. And our committee, the Middle East Crisis Committee, has been picketing her for generations, it seems, at least decades. And she, seemed to have moved a little bit. She came back from Israel, and then she made some statements that were critical. And then this week, I think on the 8th, Mark Pocan, the congressman from Wisconsin, said she signed on to the letter he is sending to President Biden, calling for a suspension of offensive arms deliveries to Israel. And she wasn't one of the 40 original signers, but there's been 16 more, and she's one of them. What do you think of that? And is it enough? Maybe I'll start with Nora.
Yeah. So I mean, first of all, I just want to say that I think DeLauro's behavior in the past 6 months of genocide has been absolutely inexcusable. I think that her call for a 6 week pause came way too late and is far too little. I think like her support of Israel has just been absolutely disturbing and horrific, and absolutely not representative or representing of her constituents. Um, in terms of Rep. Pocan's letter, I think it's very telling that the thing in the wake of 32,000 deaths of Palestinians that's made her call for this pause of arms transfers to Israel is the death of white people and of an American citizen. I think that just is so telling of the way she views Palestinians, which is not as humans, because I don't know how else you could let 32,000 humans be brutally murdered by a genocidal government. So yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say I disagree with the letter. I think arms transfers should not only be paused, but should be completely canceled forever, indefinitely. But yeah, I will say that the context in which this is coming out is just telling of who she is and her as a representative. And I really disagree with her stances thus far.
Thanks. Nounja, how do you feel about Rosa DeLauro and her
Mhm.
actions
Mhm.
about this?
Well, it's ultimately quite meaningless when you call for a pause in the genocide while simultaneously handing over the technologies of murder. It just doesn't work like that. And so we see this kind of empty language coming from Biden, from DeLauro, certainly too little, too late. And it's also not meaningful when it's not accompanied by something that changes the material conditions. And so while you continue to fund as well as send over the direct technologies, the weapons, the means of genocide, then it really doesn't matter what statements you're putting out. We see through their actions, as Nora said, where their actual values lie, and when they are paid off through these different means, of course, that's going to be what they continue to support.
Yeah, and I remember, was it 2 years ago when Gaza was pummeled, and DeLauro was head of the Appropriations Committee, and she rushed through an extra $1 billion for the Israeli government. It was really unfortunate. Now you work in the field of mental health, Nounja, and I saw a meme that I think is probably accurate, and it said that 100% of Gaza children are having, I don't know if they use the word mental problems or trauma or something. It must be unbelievable there.
Absolutely. And, we cannot depoliticize the what mental health means in this context. There can simply be no mental health within this context. And the treatment there is not more psychologists or psychiatrists or therapists or medication, but to simply stop the genocide, to simply allow Palestinians to live in freedom and in dignity on their own land. That is the only treatment for the kinds of trauma that we're seeing now. Being displaced from your land is traumatic in and of itself. And so to have the right of return for refugees to return to their homeland, this is what is actually needed for healing.
Have you ever had contact directly with Palestinian children to help them with mental health?
So I'm part of some networks of healthcare workers. It's really difficult because of connectivity to do things via telehealth. But also it turns out it's not very helpful for outsiders, especially when there's a language difference, to sort of come in a maybe savioristic sort of way, especially amidst the onslaught that continues. And so I think the best thing that we can do as healthcare workers, especially from the imperial core, is to mobilize against our government to try and stop things from this side. Otherwise, there's really no meaning behind doing sort of therapy in that context.
Now, Nora, so you're on campus. Are you in a dorm? I don't know how things are these days, but so you're in a dorm. What year are you in, if I may ask?
Yeah, I'm a sophomore.
Sophomore. So what is the sentiment on campus about this issue?
Um, yeah, that's an interesting question. I think in October, the sentiment was really disturbingly pro-Israel. I think now it's come to a point where people are being forced just by the sheer number of deaths and like atrocities that Israel's committing to kind of admit to themselves some of what is happening, but like I've just been so incredibly disappointed by a lot of my fellow students and also just by administration and professors who have not only been silent, but some of whom have been mobilizing against the work that we're doing for Palestine.
Has there been any actions taken against students or faculty for pro-human rights work?
Um, yeah, I mean, there was a faculty member who a student kind of tried to get removed because she wrote a tweet in support of Palestine's right to defend itself. And so yeah, that was a really big mobilization that again was just so awful and disturbing to see happen on my own campus. Um, there've been there's been lots of back and forth between students and administration. Again, you mentioned the pinkwashing conference, which was about Palestinian women's experiences and the Israeli regime's pinkwashing efforts, and that had to be canceled and rescheduled because again of student interference. And yeah, so I mean, I think we see examples from Columbia and other universities where students are just getting absolutely brutalized. And I will say, like, that has not been our experience, thankfully. But yeah, it definitely is not a particularly sympathetic campus atmosphere. I think as can be expected because Yale is absolutely complicit in the genocide. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's a good point to make. How is Yale complicit in your view?
I mean, absolutely ideologically complicit. I think in so many ways, Yale is a heart of empire within the US, which is the heart of empire. And just like upholds these values of colonialism, of white supremacy, of kind of all of these ideologies that have made this genocide possible. I think it is Um, it has some material investments through several different kind of investment portfolios in Israel. And I think yeah, just like their continued commitment to this kind of neutrality, which of course, as we know, when 32,000 people have been killed, more than that, there is no neutrality, and not saying anything is defending the colonizer and is defending the genocidal regime. Yeah.
Nounja, I know you have to leave. Any parting comments to our viewers?
Let's say that we ultimately know that Palestine will be free. We know that we changed the arc of history and we want to stand on the right side. And so we hope that more folks will join the movement and be bold in action. This is not the time for timidness. This is not the time to waver in our values, but to heed this call and allow it to guide us towards justice.
I would like to thank both of you for participating in the interview. Thanks so much.
Thank you
Thank you.
for having us.